Bob Mitchell with Dice Guild Gaming, and welcome to the Communication of Gaming, Episode 1. We're going to talk about organizational communication and how that is going to roll over into our favorite hobbies, board games. Now, I do have a degree in organizational communication, and I have postgraduate work in that field as well. And so I was trying to come up with ways to associate what I learned in college with what my hobby is. And I've noticed these little things that I do every time I play a game with either a new group of people or even the same group of people. And then it just came to me. It's like, well, why don't I do this video series? So that's what this video series is about. So we're going to go into it. So organizational communication, that is a very broad term, which is most of what this video series is going to be about are the concepts in organizational communication. But to be able to understand the concepts, we have to kind of understand what organizational communication is. So most of the time when you need to find out like what a word means, you're going to look in a dictionary or you're going to go online and look it up. Not in Wikipedia, because you will probably get the wrong definition. The dictionary is going to provide you information that's going to help you learn how to use a particular word. In the case of organizational communication, it's not a very clear definition. So according to Catherine Miller, in her book, Organizational Communication Approaches and Processes, to understand the concept or the definition of organizational communication, or ORCOM, you need to understand 5 critical features of both the word organization and communication. And then you can put together those definitions, and then you have a broad overview of what organizational communication is. It's not what you think it is, okay? It's not the communication of organizing or things of that sort. It's very different. As a matter of fact, I had at a job interview for the job I have right now, the manager that was interviewing me actually said, is like, hey, when he offered me a job, he said, we want you to have this job because you have your degree in organizational communication and you can organize really well. I didn't say anything to him because I wanted the job, but he was way off the mark, and we're going to learn that in this video series, and related to our games, which is the cool thing. You can use games to teach, and it's just they're such a good tool because you can learn something and have fun while doing it. So let's take a look at the word organization. And so we're going to look at Miller's first critical concept and apply it to the games we love, and that concept is a social collectivity. Now, what does that mean? Basically, a social collective is going to be 2 or more people. Okay, so communication works 2 or more people, and I don't know how many of you have actually taken communication classes in either high school or college, but you see the little chart. You have the 2 stick figures, and they're communicating back and forth, and you have the different channels of communication with the noise around them and things like that. It's very similar to that. In a collective, it acts different than the individual. So if you think to like Star Trek, you think of the Borg, they're a collective. They operate under one mind. That's almost what a social collective is. But the problem is the larger the social collective becomes, the more difficult it is to communicate in that social collective. So imagine you're at, you're playing a 2-player game. You're just playing back and forth like a two-player cooperative game, like let's say Pandemic, for instance. And it's very easy to communicate. The game is actually easier with 2 players. When you start adding more players, the game becomes more and more difficult. So that's the way the communication of the social collective becomes. So you have to learn different and more creative ways to communicate to make everybody understand, and that so you're all on the same level. Let's take a look at the game. It's a newer game, came out, I don't know, but there's like a million versions of it now. We're going to take a look at code names today, and this is the original code names, and you can use code names, even the deep undercover one, which I would not suggest you do with kids, and pictures, and even duet works as well, because that's completely a full co-op, and you can play it, even though it's for 2 players, you can play it with more than 2 people. So let's say in a 4-player game of code names, your collective is essentially 2 people, right? So you have the spy master, and then you have your teammate, and then the other team has a spy master and their teammate. So at that point, there's some different factors that go into it, and I'm going to go into it in a little bit, but at that point, you're only explaining the clues to one person, your teammate. much easier than doing that. The games probably go by a little quicker, and things of that sort. So, that's easy. That's easy. Green 2, or and if especially the more familiar with that person, you can use anecdotal clues as well, and they can help out, which is something that we do when we play the game. Now, let's take a look at code names playing with 20 people. All right, this gets a lot more difficult, right? So now you've got not only so each team now has a spy master, and then 9 people that are guessing these clues. You would think at first that's easier because they have a wealth of knowledge, but it's not so easy for that spy master, because this spy master has to learn a different way to communicate with these 9 people than he would one-on-one. So now your social collective has grown, so you have to organize your thoughts. And you'll notice that larger game of code names take longer because of this. Code names comes with a timer, and I can see that in like the smaller games. In the larger games, you don't want to use a timer because it does get. I mean, the whole point, if you're going to play a game with 20 people, you're going to have to. You're going to expect it to last a good long time. So each collective is now 10 members, and each individual is different. So your job as a spy master becomes more complex. So this is. And I just explained, this is why a larger game takes longer. This also leads to frustrations in the spy master, because he may say something and that 2 of his collective understand, but the other 7 don't. And these other 7 are going to interpret what he said different, and they're going to argue about it, and they're going to end up getting the wrong clues probably. So as you can see, that becomes more complex. So that's just kind of, Codenames is just a perfect example of the social collective. And there's other games that do this pretty well too. Codenames is the first one that came to mind. But basically any co-op game or any game you have teams on, this is going to happen. Social deduction games are pretty obvious about this too, especially if you know people's tells and how familiar you are with those people. Which brings me to the next point. Okay, social collectives are built, and they the familiarity you have with the people in your collective affects how you communicate with those people. I mentioned anecdotal clues in code names, and that's a perfect example. If you're on a team, let's say you're on a team of 5 people, and the 5 people you're a spy master, you have 4 people, and those 4 you guys are playing at a con, and those guys are all on the same team, and they're all from your gaming group, and you guys have been playing games together for years. You're probably going to kill the other team if they are not as close as you guys are, because they may be 5 different individuals that just sit down to play the game. So you're going to actually destroy them at this game, because you're going to be excellent at this. If any of you ever went to a gaming convention, Gen Con's a good one. I believe they have the Artemis Bridge Simulator. You can go in there and kind of be in the peanut gallery and kind of watch these people, and you'll notice that the groups that are not as tightly knit do worse at that game. This is another example of a social collective. The more familiar you are, the more you can almost tell what the person's doing. The more familiar you are, that makes it a lot easier to communicate. So there's some variance in that. So the next time you play a game, look at the social collective. How big is the group? Are they your longtime friends? Did you just get together and play at a convention? These things can influence your decisions in the game. A game like Codenames, if you've never played with these people, you're probably going to get pretty obvious clues. You can't be too sneaky about it, because you may psych out your own teammates, right? So you may mislead them by accident and to help out the other team. So you want to give more obvious clues, and the more and more games you play together, the easier it becomes to give clues and things like that. The more you play with the same group, like I said before, the less complex communication and coordination become. So, it's just like a paintball team. The first time you get together, you may not be as coordinated, but as you play more and more together, you're going to know where everybody's going. You can use nonverbals to let everybody know what you're doing. The same thing in Codenames. Is the more you play with them, the easier it is to give clues. So, that's just a brief overview of the critical fact number 1, which is a social collective. So, what do you think about it? How does your collective or your gaming group influence the decisions your games, or even the games you play, because that's a part of it too, because your collective can push you in a direction of what games to play. Maybe you're a big gamer. You like playing the TI3s and the Exodus Proxima Centaurs. You like playing those big meaty games that last half a day. But maybe your groups likes to play Codenames. How do you deal with that? Post that below. Let me know how your collective affects your decisions in either choosing a game or even playing a game, even Codenames. I mean, share some stories about that as well. Just put your comments below, and I always look forward to reading your comments. As always, you can always email me at thedicegildgaming@gmail.com. You can take a look at our Facebook page. Just do a search for The Dice Guild Gaming, and where games matter. So take a look there. Give us a like. Share some stories. Talk to us. We always love to hear from you. But until next time, I'm Bob Mitchell. This has been Dice Guild Gaming, and you have been watching The Communication of Gaming. Thank you very much.